Tony, my friend. It's been a while.
Yeah. It has been a long time, and still in my head, the theme song for the Path Solutions ad plays in my head immediately following that intro.
Now I'm regretting picking that because now we're like it's just stuck. So how you been, man?
It was so catchy. Yeah, it was so catchy. I've been pretty good. I mean, given that we haven't been back on the air in a couple of weeks, all in all, things have been pretty well. Past few days, I've been a little depressed. That's just a personal thing.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
You know, this whole thing is just getting the better of me. You know, sometimes you're in a lull, and I don't know how to get you don't know how to get yourself out of it. I feel like it's weighing on me right now, but for the past 2 weeks, man,
the pandemic or just life in general, or what's going on?
Yeah. A little bit of everything, you know, a little bit of pandemic, a little bit of life, a little bit of work. And when these things like all hit their lull at the same time, it just feels terrible.
Yeah.
But I'm not dwelling on it. I know time will pass and we'll get out of it. You know, I have a loving, supporting wife and family who cares, you know, about me when I get like this. But yeah, I mean, for the past few weeks, things have been great, man. I've been getting into a couple of fun projects. You know, work has been cranking out a bunch of stuff, and it's been really cool to be busy again. You know, I'm in the workshop, although this is a green screen with a cool digital background. I'm in a workshop where it gets like, now it's summertime in the mid-Atlantic region, so it's super humid, and it's been getting up to 90 degrees during the day.
Yeah, you
so
were
it's
overheating
like sweltering in
the winter. Yeah. So
yeah, the computer was, absolutely. So now I'm overheating as well. So I've been going back into the office a couple of days a week, and that's been good. It's been really good to see people again, to see coworkers, to just say hi as people are coming in and out of the door. It's been really good. That has been like rejuvenating, like re-energizing my soul a little bit, just having a little bit of interaction with people who don't live in my house.
Yeah.
It's been pretty good. So luckily tonight it's not too hot. It's actually like a comfortable 70 something degrees here.
Yeah.
Average humidity, and hopefully we can get through tonight's stream without overheating my computer.
I love how we always wait till the end to do naked hardware when we need your computer to be active. And by that point, it's just, it's falling apart. So yeah, I've had the same experience. And I think it would have been that way whether the pandemic was still as strong as, or going strong or letting up, or I'm not quite sure where we're at right now, but just because of the nicer weather, right? Being able to get outside and be around people. I have had a couple of inside experiences without masks, and that's just a little strange, right? Not because it's wrong, but just because it's been so ingrained and it's been such a serious thing that, it's definitely kind of just, it shifted the perspective of what normal is. And so it's been a little weird, right? Kind of adjusting that, but but no, it's all good news on that front. Do anything cool at work?
We have a bunch of really cool projects. It just seems like we have a bunch that are hitting all at once, and I'm fortunate that I get to contribute to a couple of different ones. So one of the things I have to do is I have to develop a training, and this is like my primary effort at the moment. And it's pretty cool because when you're delivering a training, you, as the instructor, you're expected to be the SME for that product or that software or that architecture or whatever you're leading the class on. And so it forces me to do a bunch of deep dives into a world that I, typically am not known for, right? I mean, I'm in the networking world, right? And now I'm diving deep into Linux things and containerization and Rev and a whole bunch of other hardware compatibility things that now I have to be forced to learn.
Okay, that's
and
good thing.
It's cool because it kind of like it broadens my horizon a little bit and also keeps things very, very interesting. I'm not just sitting around staring at a Cisco CLI all day. That has never been my role, and I'm kind of glad it hasn't. That I've had the opportunity to venture out and try a lot of different things.
Not being a CLI jockey?
Yeah. So I guess some people might assume that, when you're a network engineer, network operator, you just live your life like that, taking product out of boxes, pre-configuring them, I guess, some sort of baseline config, and then staring at the command line all day. And like, rarely do I do that. In fact, I made a joke the other day to a coworker that I walked into his office and he was sitting there and he had like two different servers booting at different times. And he's sitting there with a keyboard on his laptop waiting for, he's like slamming like F11 on the keyboard or something, like over and over and over, trying to get to like the BIOS boot menu or whatever. And I said, you guys probably spend more time staring at the BIOS boot screen than you do the actual operating system. And that's the nature of sort of what we do at my company. And because we're sort of at the nexus of, and not the networking gear nexus, but the crossing of software and hardware, right? So we're trying to develop sort of customized hardware to fit a specific purpose, where when you use different kinds of software on it, there's sort of a perfect match. And so there's a lot of BIOS tuning. There's a lot of like moving dip switches and a bunch of like serious stuff that I'm really out of my element doing that. I'm glad there's tons of smart people that do that, but you would not be out of place to walk into my office and see most people staring at a BIOS screen as their day job. And I just think that's kind of funny. Most people use the operating system. They use Windows or Mac or Linux or something, right? They're using the operating system, and most of the people that work for my company are engineers before the operating system boots.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that stuff is those guys are way smarter than I am, and I may never catch up, and I'm okay with that.
So training, not so much hands-on gear on some of these projects, but more just kind of developing content.
Yep. So I've been living in PowerPoint, but that's okay. I get my fixes here at home. I did a blog post now a couple of weeks ago where I did an inline IPS. So I'm running BIOS router here at my house on a piece of hardware from my company. I'm kind of building out a proof of concept, and I went ahead and installed Suricata on it, which can operate in two modes. If you put it inline, it has the ability to drop network packets, and if you put it off of a span or a tap or anything, it becomes an IDS and does tons and tons and tons of protocol analysis and allows you to deep dive what's going on in the network. And so I put it in line and just to test it out and see how it works. And actually, I need to do some performance testing. So something beyond iPerf, right? I need to run like an iMix traffic set against it and actually see what I can do. Thing is, I'm kind of limited here, right? I got a 10 gigabit uplink from the switch to the router, but nothing else is really 10 gigs. It's just for looks. I'm not
you don't
pushing
have a traffic generator at home.
No, we have them at work, and maybe I could just. I guess
borrow
I could,
an Ixia or something.
Yeah. Actually, you know what we like to use a lot? We like to use T-Rex from Cisco. It is really, really awesome.
It's good.
We probably have T-Rex running all day on different pieces of hardware. Someone needs to test something, they're using T-Rex.
Right.
It's quick, it's dirty, it's free, it's open source. Right. It's great.
Yeah, like all things, like usually like that free tool that somebody or some company wrote or released is good up to like about 80%. It meets a lot of those needs, which is great. It's fantastic that those tools are out there. And then you get into like, if you get past that 80%, then you pay, and it goes from paying nothing or very little to paying a lot, right? Because traffic generators are not cheap. So that's cool.
Yeah, I'm really happy about it. So again, I don't get to do a lot of networking every day for my day job. So I get to do cool engineering stuff at home with my network. So in fact, I just ordered, don't tell anyone. I'm glad we have a special guest today, but because I just ordered a new tap. The Dualcomm released a 10 gig tap, so I'm very excited about that. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in line as well. And maybe pump that to PCAP or something. I don't know. It's on the way. I'll figure out what to do with it.
I've like that.
I always wanted like a list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't exactly know. I didn't buy it with a well, I know I have to do performance testing, so I'm going to leverage it like that. We'll see.
I'm sorry. Kevin Myers in the comments here says, "Don't tell anybody about Trex." Right.
Yeah.
It's the only thing from Cisco that's free.
We are big fans of T-Rex. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I'm glad you know about it. I'm glad Kevin knows about it. You know, that means that, you know, we aren't the only ones. And, you know, that's sort of a very useful utility.
Yeah. I can tell you that in the early part of my career, I never needed a traffic generator. It only seemed to come along when I started working on, you know, like really proving out designs or really proving out gear or whatever. So I don't know that it's one of those things that you necessarily need to know about until you get to a certain point where all of a sudden it's like, I really need to test this from a capacity perspective or whatever. That tends to come around in design and architecture more than it does in those, you know, hands-on keyboard early on roles. But yeah, it's amazing how much more I play with tools I never thought I would have as I've kind of progressed in my career. And that's one of them is packet generators. I don't touch them very often, but they affect a lot of what I do. Hey, Warren's here too. Hey, Warren, how you doing, man? I see Kevin's on. Saw a note from Dan and somebody on Twitch. Maybe I should go over there and actually like let them know that like we see them. Twitch has not been a place where we've gotten a lot of
Twitch.
Yeah.
If you're on Twitch, we have chat going on here at on the YouTube chat. Pop on over.
Right. I'm wondering if we should just consolidate down to YouTube. I like the idea of Twitch, but we just aren't investing in it. Yeah, anyway. Kevin Myers asks, is he the only one that killed a Linksys? I'm assuming he means WRT 54G. It says a wet 54G with iPerf. I've killed lots of things with iPerf. I don't know that I've ever killed a WRT 54G. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, like the Vios box I'm running now. I mean, it's our own hardware. But I did iPerf on it from a local machine to the inside gateway, and then from the Vios box out to one of my iPerf servers, and then you know the one that's Scott Linux, that iPerf public server.
Yeah.
And I max out. I mean, it's just 1 gig link, but I max out.
Take a low grade firewall and turn on all the features, and it doesn't take much to get iPerf to make it fall over. So.
Really? Wow. I was just thinking because iPerf is just, you know, there's no protocol there. You know, it's just crap data. You know, there's nothing to inspect. It's either the ports are open or it's not.
Yeah. So yeah, man. So obviously I've been the reason for the delay here. Kind of went through a surgery myself and on the mend, which is a good thing. But yeah, we were looking at last week, and Tony was ready to go. I can tell you, I could hear it in his voice. He was ready to go. I had a pretty rough day on Monday, and this typically when we get together and chat about things. And I was like, we'll see how it goes. And then got to Wednesday. I was like, nah, it's just not going for me right now. So we're happy to be back. I stepped into work this week and this was literally the thing my boss said to me. It's like, I'm backing up the dump truck, right? Like all the work came just piling after 2 weeks of not being in. And it's just been insane this week because it's just a matter of it's catching up from 2 weeks of not being there. And then there was some serious work that I and others had underestimated the scope of doing the work, what it was going to take. And so I came back to that as well. So it's been an interesting week. It's already been a long week. It's Wednesday. We say that every time we're on, like it's been a long week, super busy. It's feeling more so this week, more because I'm just trying to get back into the swing of things and got hit with quite a few things. So I'm actually looking forward to next week where I can actually catch up rather than jump right into all the stuff that needs to be done with very short time frames. Yeah. So, but yeah, work was good. Home was good. Bored out of my skull during recovery. Not much you can do, right? and can't lift, can't really be. I mean, you can walk around, but it can't be too active. I watched a lot of soccer. The European Championships going on right now, and I watched a lot of soccer. So yeah, so that was me for the past couple of weeks. I am very familiar with all the national teams now from Europe because I've been doing that. I'm not a TV guy. I don't have a lot of shows. I don't watch a ton of movies. Like, it's just not my thing. And so like, there's not like a fallback. Like, I'm going to go watch this because I've been looking to catch up. I just don't know. Like, I don't pay attention to it. So like, it's like, what do you do? I went out and bought a Lego set just to have something to put together. So I wasn't watching TV. Like, I went out and bought a Lego set because I was just like, I gotta have something to do. And it was driving me crazy. So I like, end of last week, I was like, just ready, like, work, bring it on. Cause I'm just done with sitting around doing nothing. So yeah, that's been my past couple of weeks. But yeah, just happy to have gotten through the procedure and everything good. And not to tell which Lego set, I got the Kylo Ren shuttle. Like, I was at the point where I would have spent probably any amount of money, but the problem was I had to get the set that day. Like, it could not be one of these things like we order it and wait for it to come in, because there's a couple of sets I would like to get in general. Like, I would be all in. Like, I would have bought like the huge like Millennium Falcon at like $800 if I could have bought it locally, because the more pieces the better, because it would have taken more time to put it together and given me something constructive to do. But no, just not I bought one of the larger ones. I need a local Lego store is what Don Sharp says. There's one that's relatively local, down near Philadelphia. It's about an hour away from me, but it's in a huge mall and it's a bit of a pain to get to. And I didn't really necessarily feel like doing that while still a bit sore from everything that had gone on.
Recovery.
Yeah. So, and I didn't feel all that nice about asking my wife to go an hour away to go pick me up Legos. So yeah, so that was that. But yeah, the past couple weeks have been a little boring, but all good. And now back into the frying pan just right away, and here we go.
Yeah.
So some big news.
Oh boy,
some big news today, man.
Yeah. At least the headlines are going crazy. I would say it's everywhere. Even my wife texted me this one from the other room, which was yeah. She's in the other room. She's texting me this news. I'm like, yeah, I know. John McAfee is found deceased in a Spanish prison cell, authorities say. Like, I don't know if that is to be expected or not, but that guy was out there, like, in a way that I don't know you can come back from. But I don't know what it is, but I found, like, always pulled to his posts. He always posted videos and, like, cryptic tweets and stuff. I couldn't help but think, like, what kind of crazy person does, acts like this and thinks it's normal? I couldn't ever tell if it was like shtick or if it was, authentic. I don't know how he ended up in the Spanish prison cell. I don't know what's going on over there, but I find him as a personality absolutely intriguing. And who's going to play him in the made-for-TV movie?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've kind of had, so I mean, obviously I've been aware.
Sean Penn.
You think so?
Put it down. Sean Penn.
So I've always kind of been, I've always been aware of him and his personality for quite some time, but I didn't really start following until all that nonsense in Belize went down, because it was like, it was high drama with someone who is connected to tech. Like, he's written for, online publications of people that I know. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like 2 degrees of separation between me and other people who knew him personally. And so it's not like this super far thing. I mean, I don't know him, right? So there's no personal connection here, but he's close enough that it's one of those things that when someone makes the news like that, it's intriguing. It's like, what is going on? And I still don't know what happened down there. I'm not taking anyone's side. I have no clue what happened. I don't think anyone knows what happened. But he made like this cat and mouse game of running from the police in Belize and escaping across the border and coming back to the U.S. And a lot of people think he got away with murder. Like, it's crazy. Like, I mean, just absolutely, like you said, made for TV drama. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then this kind of came out of nowhere. Now, I know that there's timing. He was just extradition had just been approved to the U.S. because of some tax charges he's up against. And I mean, but my take from this in all of this is that you can't diagnose someone remotely. So I'm not saying this, but it really looks like he had some mental health issues that were not addressed. And that always seems to end tragically. Right? And I think we in America specifically, but I think everywhere kind of struggles with this, doesn't take those things seriously. And I think it's really sad because I just like, here's the inconsequence. I mean, like there's dissonance here. We were talking in Slack about it a little bit. There's dissonance here to me because what happened in Belize, he was running from a murder charge and it was a game to him. So it seems weird that tax charges, right? Like something that, you know, like even if he was guilty and was convicted and had to do the time, probably wouldn't be that bad. You know what I'm saying? Like there's, I don't know. And so like, there's clearly something going on, and it's sad for his family. It's sad for everyone who knows him and cared about him. And I don't like making judgments of people from afar. He definitely provided a lot of drama. I know he did that on purpose, right? Like he was looking for the attention, but that doesn't mean that somebody should suffer through mental illness if that's what it was, or ever have to like resort to suicide, right? Like that. And that's what they're saying it is. And so I just, you know, there's a level of sadness watching it just because it's like, this ended very tragically and probably didn't need to.
And I can't help but think like his story is ended now. There's a lot of things we don't know. We will never know. You know, I think I would have loved to have gotten closure to what was going on with him. You know, I would have loved to have found out in the years to follow what was going on with him, why he was running around, tell his side of the story, so to speak. And maybe he has that outlet somewhere and I just don't know it. I am only aware of him when he comes across the headlines.
Right.
And each time it's for something that like no one that I would know is going to be in headlines for the things he's in headlines for. So I don't know, how we'll ever get to the bottom of it.
Yep. So interesting, worth mentioning, absolutely. But it'll be interesting to see what comes about in the next few days, because I think, well, of course, immediately the conspiracy theories went wild. And, naturally. I think anyone with that kind of persona, it absolutely makes sense. I understand why. Even I was like this, like, there's this dissonance. It doesn't seem right. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy, but it doesn't feel right because of the big persona, the person who always kind of bucks the system. But people change, things change, I don't think there's conspiracy or anything here. We'll find out, I guess. Well, maybe we won't. I don't know. But regardless, that's definitely not the way that I lean. Not conspiracy. Although one might consider it possible because of how long it's taken to see happen. But Nexus switches have 2-stage commit. Did you have any idea? No. I saw the post that you were describing, and no, I didn't know. You brought it to my attention. Yeah, so this is something that I have been bugging every PM that's ever worked at Cisco that I've interacted with who's worked on a switching line. Why does this not exist? Like, why? And so what I'm talking about here is if you've worked with Juniper and Juno specifically, they have a feature called commit confirmed. Right. And if you haven't worked with it, what it does is this: you go into the configuration. When you go into the configuration, unlike Cisco, Juniper batches everything that you do. It doesn't apply it right away. So there's no like putting in one line of an ACL and cutting yourself off. You can put in all of the ACL and allow yourself in or whatever. You do all of the work that you're planning on doing, and then you commit it. So that's the batched process. That's the 2-stage. But then they have this 2-stage with a little additional feature called commit confirmed, which is I do all of the work that I'm going to do in the configuration. I apply it. And if I don't confirm it within a certain amount of time, a time that I set, I say 5 minutes, I say 15 minutes, whatever. If I don't go in and recommit that completely, it will undo my changes, meaning that if you cut yourself off, you don't have to, like run to the data center or run to wherever your gear is to do it. I thought this was brilliant. Like, this is just a really elegant, simple solution to a problem that we've all faced. Yeah, I saw that Kevin Myers one. I'm opening the betting on how long it will take before a bug is filed for commit crashing the switch. It's not going to take long. I'm sure it's already happened, Kevin. But this I thought when Juniper came out with it, I don't know when they came out with it. I know when I had my first interaction with it. And my first interaction was over a decade ago. So it's been around for a very long time. Now, we have Donald Sharp, who's in our Slack, and he has worked at Cisco and worked on the code. And so I asked him about it, and he basically said it was a whole rewrite of the CLI, or at least the config portion of the CLI, to be able to make this happen just the way that the Cisco had been created. And that's why it's always been something that's been either burner or not important. But I always thought this was brilliant because we're always working on gear that's remote from us, right? And, reload in is a okay command. It does, but like some devices.
Remember, I told you about my story. Yeah,
your war story.
Reload
right?
in 5.
Yes, reload in 5. Yeah. And I've done reload in, and left it. This is the challenge, right? Same thing that you've done where you set the command, you do the work, and then you forgot that you set the command because everything worked. In a Juniper piece of gear, it just undoes what you did. Right. But if you do it on, like some gear takes a long time to reboot. If you're talking about a core switch or a major router, sometimes we're talking about reload times anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. Right. Depending on how complicated the hardware configuration is, how long it takes to post and get in and do what needs to happen. And so those reloads can be, that's not a very elegant solution. Where with Juniper, it waits the time. If you cut yourself off, you have to make sure to not set that window to be too large. If you say commit confirmed and set it to an hour, well then, if you cut yourself off and you took the router offline, it's that way for an hour, unless you go fix it. But like if you set it to something reasonable, it just resets and you get your device back and you go, what did I do wrong? And you can go on with your day. And so I just thought it was really elegant. I was shocked. It was Tom Costello in our Slack came out and said, hey, no one really wrote about this. And I don't really know if anyone knows about it. So I wrote a blog. And the blog was great. It went through, he showed how it worked, and it went through, and he did it with, he tried it with both NetMiko and Ansible, because he's like, who's actually, managing these things from the CLI right now? Probably a lot of people, to be honest. He asked the question. Obviously, he's not. He's doing a lot of automation. And so he wanted to try it against NetMiko and against Ansible. And I thought that was really cool to be able to see to see those things tried out. And NetMiko actually works because NetMiko does not tear down the session until you're all done or until it times out. I guess Ansible tears down the session as soon as the config set is pushed. And this is specifically, he calls out the point that it's specifically, hey, Tony posted the link in the chat. So if you're listening, it's on, it's in the YouTube chat. But I also tweeted it, by the way. If you follow me and you aren't on YouTube right now, just go to my Twitter. And it was one of my last 20 tweets. It won't be hard to find. This is made specifically to be done within one session. So what they're doing is they're assuming that if you log out, if it's a graceful exit, like you issue the command to terminate, that you've just forgotten to commit and it commits it for you. I think that's a silly assumption myself. I don't know that I would make that assumption myself, but it's not an awful assumption. Obviously, if you exit ungracefully by timing out, it's not going to commit it for you. It's going to roll it back. That's the whole point. And so I guess with NetMiko, you have the option of, the session stays open, and with Ansible, it tears it down right away, so you can't go in and reconfirm it. So as soon as it pushes, it changes, but then it undoes it it commits it when it gracefully shuts down the session. And so that's an interesting nuance to it. And he points that out as well. So I'll credit to Tom Costello on this, because I would have gone on in my life. Now, I don't work in data center anymore. Like all of my stuff is WAN and cloud and routing. I'm not really working in data center switching. I used to spend a lot of time in data center switching, which is why this one struck me as much as it did, because it's like, oh my word, how did I not know that this is what it really is? But so that was interesting. It's one of my favorite commands that I've ever come across. It's one that saved mine quite a bit. So if you're running Nexus, that's a great new feature. Now it is on, of course, a non-gold starred, non-approved, non-mainline code version. It's still very, very new. So, don't go running and putting it into production just yet, but check it out and maybe push Cisco to get it into the mainline stream sooner rather than later, so you can run it on code that you can actually run in your data center, because that makes a difference.
I remember learning about a code. I think it was Cisco iOS XE, a command, and it would show you which BGP attribute won the race.
Donald Sharp built that into FRR, and it's awesome.
I think it's like, show IP BGP, whatever prefix you have, just in its basic form, show IP BGP, whatever prefix you have, and then like result. And it'll tell you which attribute was the actual tiebreaker, because sometimes it can be hard to decipher, especially if you're receiving a prefix from 10 different neighbors, or more. Sometimes that output can be hard to decipher. So I forget what the exact command was, but it was years after I did a large BGP deployment, and I would have loved to have had that. And I see Chris Miles says, I love when Tony drinks invisible soda.
It's not invisible
my
soda.
Green screen.
His invisible beer. Yeah, it's a green green
It's
glass.
a Heineken bottle in front of a green screen. Yes.
Yeah.
And it looks like Donald Sharp says, me not you Sharp says, yes, I did. So I guess he's responding to putting that in FRR. I haven't used that in FRR. I haven't spun up BGP in FRR. That's why.
Yeah. So he says it's show BGP, IPv4, unicast, and then the route.
Yeah. The prefix.
The prefix. And it says it lists the reason right there, which I thought when he was doing that, we were talking about it in Slack, and I was like, this is brilliant. And where has this been all of my life? Why?
Yeah. Right.
Why is this not done? Yeah, that was a big one.
Because otherwise you have to decode the BGP output, for your prefix, and sort of figure it out based on neighbor relationship and different attributes you're receiving. And sometimes it can be tough. There's a couple of corner cases that break the rules. And, it's great to have the output right there in front of you. So I'll have to, I'll dig that up and I'll put it out in a tweet a little bit later.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, so we've got a guest today. Returning guest.
Yeah. One of my favorite returning guests.
Yeah. You want to introduce him?
Mr. Packet Pioneer Chris Greer, everybody. Oh, let me cue the clock.
What's up, guys?
Chris, man, how you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you. You sound a little bit distant, and I know your gear is usually a little bit better. You want to check to make sure you're on the right mic?
Yep, let me make sure. Is that it all better? No?
It sounds about the same.
All right, let me try this. Okay, how about that? Any better?
Whoa!
Way better. Much more solid.
Nice.
Very good.
How you guys doing tonight?
Doing well, man. How about yourself?
Yeah.
Doing good. Yeah, it's been a busy couple weeks. I know, just listening to you guys, it's like, man, what have I been doing the last couple of weeks? Oh yeah, Shark Fest Europe.
Yeah, that was a big one.
just a little bit. So last week,
how was Sharkfest Europe? I was going to say you were providing a training, and then did you participate in any talks?
So this one, Sharkfest Europe, I didn't do any pre-conference training this time. I do it for the US just because the time zone thing, and it's a little easier to do that from 1 a.m. till 9 a.m. But because we're doing it all on their time. So this time I just did a session. I did a session on Quick and if it's going to kill TCP or not. And it was nice. It was nice to be there with the other packet people. And actually, it was kind of cool too because this time, actually, Gerald Combs and one of the organizers of Sharkfest, they're just up the road from me now. Well, a little longer than a few miles, but I'm in San Diego, and they were up in San Francisco doing the conference from there. So they hit me up and said, "Hey, why don't you just come up here with us? We can all camp out and do all this together, try to keep each other awake all night." So, try to keep the sessions going. So it was nice actually to be there with Gerald and the organizer of the event was cool. So I had a good time.
That's very cool. I'm trying to think, what was he doing in San Francisco? I think when I talked with him before, because he popped into Sharkfest last year into a couple of the chats. I mean, was he over at like the Riverbed offices or something?
No, so it wasn't actually in San Francisco proper. Actually, we were on East Bay, just outside of Berkeley. But he lives just north of there in Davis, so kind of between there and San Francisco. So he came down the road, and then the organizer lives north of the Bay, somewhere up there. So we all just kind of came together in one spot, and it was like an in-person virtual conference. Yeah. All the attendees were virtual, but the organizers, we got to be together and do it locally together. So that was cool. Like you guys were just saying, it was kind of weird to be with other humans and no masks. That was strange.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple of conferences coming around this year. Sharkfest US, which I got my tickets and I bought the whole pre-conference training pack. So I'll get to sit with Chris Greer again. And then I think Betty Dubois, and who else is giving a training? Someone else who I can't recall their name.
The third one is Phil Shade. So he's doing, I think, like advanced protocols or something. I have to look up his course title, but that's great. You're going to be sitting with all of us through all the pre-conference courses.
Yep. It's really good. And, even though I took your pre-conference training last year, you cover a lot of material, a lot of TCP material. It's impossible to ingrain all of that in just one time. So I'm really looking forward to coming back and going through that training. I know you'll have some similar content, maybe some new content, but hitting it again will just help it, help me understand it. I'm coming in with a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more experience. So I'm hoping to be less lost, because I'm telling you, when Chris Greer starts diving into TCP, you're like, I thought it was just 20 bytes. I don't know what the big deal is.
It's a lot more than a handshake.
Yeah, right. It's a lot more than a handshake.
Actually, it's funny you say that, Tony. I was working with one of my clients just this last week. I was working with a new customer and getting a course set up for them. And they were like, the TCP stuff, we can go through that. We know what the handshake is. So anyway, moving into the application stuff. And I was like, back up a second. Like, TCP is way more than the handshake. But, I'm right there with you. So that'll be great to have you back. And that's actually, so we, it's actually pretty common at Sharkfest too, to have people that are repeat takers of the pre-conference course. This would be my third time, and we have ones already registered that are taking it for a third round. And I think that's really cool to see, because it's just going back to, and I say this in the course, in the pre-conference course, and just in case anybody doesn't know what that is. So Sharkfest is the Wireshark developer and users conference, and it happens in the States once a year, and then also in Europe once a year. So we just did the European one last week. And then in September 12th through 17th is going to be the US one. And the conference itself is going to be on Thursday and Friday of that week. So September 16th and 17th. And you can register just for the conference part. And those are basically about an hour-long talks from different developers and instructors in the Wireshark community. Maybe Tony will give us a talk this year. We don't know. We'll see if we can get something out of him.
Maybe, yeah. Me and a friend, we might be diving into that. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys updated.
That'd be sweet. That would be great. So the conference itself is there, but you can also register for pre-conference courses. And the pre-conference course that I'm going to be doing is 2 full days. And that's going to be on Wireshark basics, getting set up, getting your profile set, filtering, how and where to capture, and then going through the core protocols. And then we're going to spend a whole day shredding TCP. So if that sounds interesting to you, go register, sign up. You can see it from, I think it's sharkfest.wireshark.org. If you go to wireshark.org, you'll see a link to the page and the registration there for sure. Go check that out.
Also, Chris makes diving into packets, which is by far probably the nerdiest and techiest thing I think you could possibly do. But he just uses a verb called like shredding packets. It just makes it like sounds so much cooler than like the guy with the dim lit desk and the big glasses trying to read hex.
Right?
Yeah, shredding packets is very cool.
Yeah, man, shredding through them with a shark.
So I have a bit of a tangent here, and I'm just kind of curious what your guys' take is, and everybody watching too. I'm curious what their take is. There's you've been talking about a conference, right? And you're talking about, this one is virtual, but you said you got to get together with some people around it. But I know like DEF CON is doing a hybrid, right? So it's another conference that's going on right now. DEF CON is going to have people in person. There's a number of other conferences. I know that getting into next year, of course, lots of people are talking about it. And I'm really kind of curious because I don't know what the answer is or what the sentiment is. How do people feel about conferences? Because I know that conferences were a big deal. They were a big deal for me. It was a great place to go. Obviously, through the lens of the pandemic, I'm kind of curious, do we think the world's going to return to what it once was? Are we going to have the big massive conferences like Cisco Live again? Or is it going to be not as many people because people are concerned about, health and safety? So I'm kind of curious, both Chris and Tony, and then also, like I said, people who are listening, what's your take? Like, are you excited about getting back to conferences? Are you concerned about the health components? Are you like, I think it's fine, let's go, vaccinate and I'm good and that's it? I'm kind of curious. So Chris, I'll start with you, and then Tony, I'm curious what your take is too.
Sure. It's interesting that you'd mentioned that about the hybrid conference, because when I was up there with the organizers, that's something that was actually tossed around. Like, should we just do something more hybrid here for the States? I mean, Europe was a different animal, right? Because you only have a couple of organizers, and, that was 4 people max. Everyone's vaccinated, much smaller group. And the attendees are all spread around Europe. It's in a lot of countries, it's a different vaccination story and such. So, but for the States, though, I mean, that conversation came up about, do we think about doing something more hybrid? But for this round, it was definitely thought that September is what the dates we're talking about. It's just too early to make that kind of gamble and then have something go wrong, since we just don't know as far as variants and stuff, how things will take shape. So, I think I could see a slow return to conferences. That I don't know if the mega conference will come around for a little bit yet. I mean, maybe 22, for sure 23, I could see that. But I imagine it's going to be, I think that conferences doing the hybrid thing are going in the right direction. Like make it smaller and make it where you have a virtual component where those that either are not comfortable or still want to participate to some degree, have that Zoom or virtual option there for them too. I can see that.
Tony, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm really excited for conferences to get back in person. I'm personally excited to attend. SharkFest is going to be completely virtual, so I'll be attending completely virtual. Had it been in hybrid or in person, I probably would have made the effort to do that. I'm fully vaccinated, and I just like miss the interactions and the things that happen at conferences. You know, there's a whole sort of like group mindset when you're there. It's a very cool thing. You know, and if there were like rules, like, look, 100% masks, you know, in any public gathering, like, fine, you know, no problem. I've been wearing a mask for the last year and a half. You know, who cares? But yeah, I'm fully vaccinated, and I would be comfortable going. I'm sure my wife would be stressed about it, you know, about me like getting out of the house and going wild. But yeah, I would be happy with it. I mean, DEF CON is doing hybrid. I kind of want to go because I've never been to DEF CON. I've always been like the outside looking in. And I feel like if there's a time to go, now's the time to go, because there's going to be less people. It's going to be much smaller venue. There's going to be a lot less going on. DEF CON is like a mega conference. So I think for me personally, yeah, now is the time. There's also a couple other conferences that are going on this year that I have my eye on, and I'm trying to convince work and my wife and everyone that I should go. Zeke Week, which is, you know, Bro and Zeke. So Zeke Week is in October. SurreyCon, which is a Surrey-Kata conference, is also in October. So Zeke Week is in Texas. SurreyCon is in Boston, Massachusetts. Both of those, I think, are going either full in-person or hybrid. Those are much smaller conferences, typically a few hundred people. But it's great. You know, I'm willing to do it. You know, I'm willing to buy the plane ticket or drive if it's close enough. And I'm fully vaxxed. I'm comfortable. And if there are any rules or restrictions around masks, I'm happy to comply. That's just me. That's my opinion. That's my stance. I don't know, you know, what else to do.
Right.
I think there's one more conference. Wait a second. That. Yeah. Oh, and there's another training, which is not a conference, but a training in October. I have like the whole month of October blocked. All right. Don't call me.
Don't call Tony. I'm kind of on the fence about this, and it's not because like if it was just me. So this has been my the challenge through all of this whole pandemic, right? Like being a dad and having kids, like I feel like there's an integrity component to it as well, in that I feel like and I'm only speaking for myself, so don't please think I'm judging anybody by saying this. I feel guilty if I get privilege my kids don't, right? And so in this, and I'm happy with where we are about the pandemic, but I feel like because of the way things have progressed, everyone who's under 12 has kind of been thrown under the bus because the risks for them are the same as they've always been. I have 2 kids that are under 12 and not vaccinated. And so like in this, like, what are my kids going to think if I go off to a conference? I spend a week with my friends hanging around large groups of people and they still can't. Right. And so like it has nothing to do with concerns about safety or the fact that we should or shouldn't, because I'm with the science that if, you know, vaccines are proving effective, it's effective against the variants, at least so far, fantastic. Like then people who are vaccinated should feel no risk whatsoever of getting together. Right. There's just not a big deal. But I do have this nagging thing behind me and my situation. And I think that there's probably, I don't imagine I'm alone, right? In trying to navigate this in a way where I feel like my kids are not getting the short end of the stick as it relates to what we're putting on restrictions on our family and how we're going about it. So I still would be a bit hesitant to go out to some big thing because conferences are a lot of fun and they're also a big risk vector, and I could not take my kids to it. And if I couldn't take my kids to it, even with masks, I'm still a bit hesitant to say, yeah, absolutely go do it yourself. Just because of the 2 standards, right? It's not any fault of theirs. Right. And so that may be ridiculous. I don't know. But it's just kind of how I feel about it. So like I'm all in once 12 and under get vaccines. Hopefully that's this fall. My oldest is vaccinated. She was like, she could not wait to get there. She made the decision. She could not wait to get there. And she did it just in time to be fully vaccinated by her birthday, which just happened. So she's giddy because she got to get together with her friends and, and whatever, her friends are vaccinated as well. So, so that's just kind of my take. I agree with you guys. Like, I wouldn't have any concern going from a health and safety perspective. Like, I'm ready. I hope others get there as well, because the big value of the conference is the people. So that's the other side of it is what, you know, what are you going to? Like, if it's a half of what it used to be, is it as exciting? You know what I'm saying? Because the real value to me is that community and getting together with people. And so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the coming months and see how people respond to going back to conferences. And I don't know. So I'm thanks for sharing. There's a couple of opinions that were shared in the chat as well. Preston says, I really just want to share my germs with everybody. That's what he really wants. So, and Laz came in and he said, I hope so. Getting that time where people can't reach you while training is golden. I agree. I have not found a lot of value out of the virtual conference experience.
And I was just getting ready to jump in and say that, like, definitely if you plan on attending a virtual conference this year or at any time in the future, but from this point on, make sure you also block off that time at work. And I don't mean like put it on your schedule like, hey, I'm attending a meeting. Like, put in for PTO or training or whatever you have to do so that you're off work. Because trying to do the left seat, right seat thing, you know, the swivel chair, I'm at work and then I'm in training, then I'm at work and I'm in training, it doesn't fly. You end up being ineffective at both. I don't care how critical your role is, just take the time off, enjoy yourself, enjoy the training, consume as much knowledge as you can, and go back to work and be a rock star. But trying to do double duty, it's not fun, and it ends up being kind of a waste. That's my take on it. That's been my experience. I've tried to do the swivel chair. I can't manage both.
I'd agree with that, Tony. And even as an instructor, you can kind of tell too by the questions that come in. You know, like that when people have to swivel chair and handle a bunch of hats, you know, and I feel for them. You know, that's something I said in last Shark Fest, and I'll say again, it's hard to disappear for 2 full days, 3 days, whatever, but it's worth the investment to not have that double, you know, you're not wearing 2 hats during that time. You can really focus.
Yeah. And my reference wasn't even to having to split focus, just the whole virtual conference. Because again, and I'm a bit cynical about conferences, and I think it might just be because of my position and the company I'm with and kind of what I do. I'm not usually getting new info at conferences, right? Like, you know, we talk about Cisco Live. It's a big one that I go to every year. I used to love, you know, going there. You hear about all the announcements, you hear about what's going on, you get to figure out kind of like what's next. And it's going to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, and I'm really not trying to, but like, I already know about that stuff, right? So that's not the exciting part to me. The real value is going and building relationships and going and that is just irreplaceable in a virtual environment. I've seen it tried multiple different ways, and all of them have fallen way flat, not to any discredit for the people who are trying. It just is not.
I know Preston is.
You are prepared.
This is me managing conference training, conference attendee, and work. My many hats at work. I think Preston. I don't know if you can hear me, but there you go. That's for you, buddy.
So the virtual thing is just falling down for me completely. We've even tried it. Now we're collective. Like hey, there's a big conference going on. Like, let's all get together in Slack and chat about it, and nothing. And so it's just challenging. And so I do hope that conferences come back. I hope they come back in at least a big enough way that it's worth going and doing. If not, I think we're going to see a resurgence of like user groups and local meetups and that type of stuff, because that social component and having a community, I think, is such a big deal. And it's something that we've lacked for a while now in any, in-person tangible way. Obviously, we maintain our online communities, and those are fantastic. But it doesn't replace being in the same space with people. Just like in the pandemic, you can't replace being in the same place with people. It's different, right? And so, I hope so.
That's a really interesting take, Jordan. I that's something I hadn't considered, which would be the resurgence of localized user groups. And I would fully endorse that. I mean, if there were local groups, in my area, I'm sure there are. Maybe I just don't know about them. But yeah, if they wanted to get together or something in some way, in a smaller way, a little conference room somewhere in a hotel, that'd be great. Chris, I wanted to bring up, you have a course, and I think there's a couple of folks here in the Network Collective Slack who have taken have seen some of your new material on Pluralsight. And you just mentioned SharkFest. You gave a talk on the Quick protocol. And I've only seen the little teaser videos that you put out on YouTube about them. It's about 5 or 6 minutes of Quick. It looks super cool. You want to give us like a little bit about what your talk was for SharkFest, the Europe crowd?
Certainly, yeah. So for those of you that don't know about Quick and what's happening out there with the standard, basically on May 27th, the Quick transport protocol was standardized. And that's been, I think, a 5-year in the making thing for the Quick working group within the ITF. So the protocol itself was originally incepted by Google back in about 2012 or so. And they were in a good position to do it because they had both the server side for a lot of common services, Gmail, Google Drive, YouTube, and they also had the client side. So with the Chromium client side. So they were able to kind of under the radar start development on Quick and start to go from a TCP centric delivery and starting to put connections over UDP. And on first, when we first think about that, like, what are we doing sending mission critical applications over the web over UDP? UDP is connectionless, it's not reliable, and blah, 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 blah. It's been interesting to get in and study Quick because basically all of the recovery, if we lose a packet, any type of flow control, basically the smarts that TCP does have now just been put on top of UDP and then transmitted, right? So one of the reasons for that is that, actually, you know what? Why don't I just show you guys some Quick? Not just tell you, but show you.
Let's do it. All right. So I've got to bring up the screen, man. All right.
Okay, cool.
Guest one, and we'll just drop you in there for now. We'll come up if we need to be on screen.
Okay, awesome. You guys can see me okay?
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all up there.
Fantastic. You know me, I can't be far from a Wireshark trace. So
no, it's great. I fully expected it, Chris.
Awesome. And also, some kind of like bright green aspect of it too, right? I won't.
Is that your color scheme? It has to be bright green.
Well, yeah, man, packet head. You gotta have
of course.
Some bright green on blue.
Yeah,
it's a branding thing.
You're just on message. Yeah, absolutely. I get it.
All right. So really, let me just take this first packet. So this is taken, I just did a capture, and I'm actually about to release this video on YouTube coming up here soon. And this is how the Quick handshake actually works. Okay, so we're thinking, okay, handshake. I know what that is. TCP, SYN, ACK, boom. Well, as you can see here, the Quick handshake itself has a few more packets than just 3. But it's broken up into a few different functions. And what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and this is just borrowing a bit from my talk, Tony, and also a little bit from the teasers I put out on my channel. But so this first packet, so if we just take a look at the layers in use here, we see I got Ethernet, so layer 2, that hasn't changed. Layer 3, IP, okay, cool. I got UDP, and then I have Quick sitting on top of UDP. So basically what's happened here is the smarts of TCP and that the things that made it so resilient if you think about TCP, I mean, TCP was standardized back in 1981. We got RFC 793 came around. So literally TCP turned 40 this year. So what we've found is, especially as speeds and feeds have gotten faster, latency has gotten longer over like oceans and so on. Like now you can have a 10 gig connection across the Atlantic and things like that. TCP has been stretched to a bit of a limit. We're starting to run out of header space for additional options. There's been a bunch of tinkering with the congestion mechanism of TCP and window scaling and making SAC work better and topics like that. We'll go into that later or in a different time. But the idea here was like, how can we take what was good about TCP, but allow this thing to evolve to what's needed now and into the future for web delivery of traffic. Now, YouTube, if you're watching this over YouTube, you're probably doing so over Quick. If you go search something on Google, you're probably doing so over Quick. And we're going to probably see that more and more, especially with web-based stuff. Now, the reason why Quick wasn't put directly over IP, you see, they could have, if I just open up the IP header, we could have come down to protocol and just come up with some new protocol identification here. We could have said, you know, protocol type, I don't know, I'm just picking one out of the air here. I've only got 1 byte to work with. So protocol 200, that's Quick. And then started to dissect Quick immediately over IP. But you see, what would happen with basically any kernel in the whole world, or firewalls or load balancers or things that are used to seeing only 1 or 2 things? Everything at the transport layer for 40 years, almost 40 years, has been either TCP or UDP at the transport layer, right? So UDP is baked into just about everything, all right? So a lot of services still run over UDP, you know, DNS, DHCP. So UDP was well positioned as far as a transport, technically a lower part of the transport layer. It was well positioned to sit Quick on top of it. I mean, if I highlight UDP, I come over to my hexadecimal output over there. I mean, it's only 8 bytes. Come on, it's a simple protocol. I just have a couple ports, and if you take a look at my hex over here, so anytime I click on something over here, the corresponding bytes will highlight over on the hex side. So yeah, 8 bytes. So it's just 2 ports, a checksum, and a length field. That's all that UDP is. So now what this does, so what we're seeing now is, okay, so UDP, and as appropriate, UDP port 443, which corresponds with the TCP 443 secure web counterpart, right? When I see that, Wireshark is going to dissect it as Quick. Now, any questions so far, guys? We doing okay? Want to start digging into actual Quick?
We have one question that we can address later, but Preston wants to know where he can get the shirt that you're wearing.
You can go. Why don't I show you where you can go?
There you go. Show him quick.
I will show you quick. Ha. I've been doing a lot of that now. Like, you know, just like, haha, quick. Hang on a second. I'm not being very quick with showing you.
That's all good.
But if you go to my channel, which should be pretty sweet, you guys. Wouldn't stop by my YouTube channel. You can just Chris Greer. I'll put it in. You know, you'll find me. And head on to store. Yeah.
Look at that. I didn't even know YouTube had stores.
Merch,
I didn't even know YouTube had stores. That's cool. There you go.
Yeah, and it was super. You know, it's funny. Tony at the Shark Fest last year, I wore this shirt to my pre-conference class, and I had a bunch of the attendees afterward just hit me up and say, "Hey, where can we get that shirt?" And I started kind of like going down the road of doing my own thing with it, you know. And I'm like, you know what? I just throw it out on YouTube and let them deal with printing and shipping and all that mess. But yeah, stop by my YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe, people. Let's, you know, and yeah, hit the store. And YouTube can be a true packet head.
And like and subscribe while you're there. There you go. I did the plug for you. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. So if no other questions at this point, so okay, high level. Let's start high level again. So why Quick? Basically, TCP, we were stretching it to. We started hitting some hard limits. Another thing with TCP is TCP had a hard time migrating to new connections. So, for example, someone is watching our Network Collective live stream right now, and they're in their home office. Well, hey, they want to walk out to their car and switch to the LTE network, and they want to jump in their car and, you know, have it on their phone, just listening to it on the way home. That jump to a new network, even if it's a different port number, really multipath TCP and TCP connection migration and application moving to a new TCP connection, it had a hard time truly adopting. A lot of times things would just end up reconnecting on a new TCP connection and ultimately be able to resume. But Quick, so migrating across new connections was something that Quick was designed to do from the ground up. So let me show you guys something kind of cool. When I open up the Quick IETF header space, I have something at the very beginning of a Quick connection. I have a long header. And all that means is I'm going to put a bunch more stuff in here, more information at the beginning that later on, once this connection is up and running, I'm not going to need anymore. So here's an example, version. Jordan, do I need to tell you in every single packet that I'm running version draft 29 Quick? You know, that's not something I need to say every single time. So this is something that you'll see in a long header, but once we switch to short header, let me make sure I'm not a liar here. Here's our short header. And if we notice here, that version is gone. We don't see version anymore. So that long header, so one of the things that's in the long header, we're going to see version. We're going to see both sides of our destination connection and our source connection ID. So this is just getting kicked off here. So we're identifying our link partner's connection ID. So basically what happens is both sides, let me come down here to this next one. So both sides, we have our source connection ID, destination connection ID length. So where is my actual destination connection ID? Hang on. There's my destination connection ID and source. I don't know where my destination connection ID is here. I'll tinker with that in a bit. But the idea is think of these guys, our source and destination connection IDs. Think of those as kind of the new port number, right? So I'm going to be connecting over a connection that is identified at the Quick level. So what that means, what's cool about this is that the UDP port numbers can change or the IP stuff can change. So let's just say a NAT box in the middle runs out of ports in some way and it has to change the outbound source port number for some reason, or maybe I literally changed networks. Well, applications that are built over Quick have the ability to resume because of the identification is one layer above that, which is kind of cool. That's a cool new feature of Quick.
Yeah, that is cool.
Also, we're also saving a round trip too. So check this out. Here's your Quick header. Right away, let me come up to my initial. In the TLS, immediately, right off the gate, if I'm connecting to you, Jordan, I'm sending you this Quick packet, and the page truly here, Wireshark is helping us out. It's dissecting this as TLS. This is the client hello. So right out the gate, I can send you my TLS 1.3 client hello with Quick. See, before, TCP would have to do a handshake. SYN, ACK. There's one round trip. And then if I'm using TLS 1.2 or below, I need at least 2 more round trips to do my full TLS conversation. Well, now the TLS 1.3 is 1 round trip. And I can kick off the client hello from the first packet. That's pretty cool with Quick. So we're saving a round trip with the TCP handshake. And instead of needing to set up the connection first and then doing the crypto stuff, I'm actually putting not just the crypto stuff, but there's actually a new TLS extension that we're going to see in here called the Quick parameters. So check that out, Quick transport parameters. Think of this, Tony, almost like all those TCP options that we talked about in class that get exchanged in the handshake. So my TCP options like my MSS and whether I can do SAC and what's my window scale and if I'm going to use timestamping and what other cool little features of TCP we're going to use for the life of this connection. The Quick transport parameters, basically this is the equivalent, if you will, for Quick. And this is all in the first packet. So this is just done as an extension of TLS. So TLS is now built into Quick. And I think that they were waiting around for 1.3 to get fully baked because 1.3 is a one round trip protocol, right? I send out my client hello. And if I look at the next packet down, my server hello is coming back from the server. So in one round trip, we're setting up TLS 1.3. And then down here, HTTP3, and check this out. So my network round trip time, client hello goes out, server hello comes back 32 milliseconds later. And if I look at when I start to see actual application data start to flow, so HTTP3, which by the way, HTTP3 and Quick are basically buddies. You're going to see HTTP3 has to be over Quick. It's built for Quick, and Quick was kind of built for it, at least initially. So when I start to see HTTP3, I'm only 40 milliseconds into this whole Quick connection. And I know that 32 of that is my network round trip. So what does that tell me? Well, unlike TCP, I had to have a TCP handshake. That's one round trip. So that would be 32 milliseconds. And then I have to have a TLS handshake, and that's going to be another 32 milliseconds at least. So I'd be 64 milliseconds here. That's just to set stuff up. If I was TLS 1.2, that'd be another round trip. So I'm at least 64 milliseconds before I can begin to see application data. Here with Quick, we were only 40 milliseconds. We just had one round trip time. Now in the future, as things get adopted and things start to mature and systems begin to optimize Quick, and the standard itself begins to develop, Quick also has an option called 0RTT. And what that means is that from the very first packet, if, let's say, Jordan, if you and I have had a connection recently, and I just need to start up a new connection and maybe handle a different aspect or a different file of the application, but you and I have both vetted each other out, I can start up a new connection and actually send HTTP3, actually begin to involve the application from the first packet. That's called the 0RTT Quick. So this thing is built to really pare down the number of round trips that we need to begin to establish the transport layer that the application then can use to move data. So when I have an application that has a lot of transactions, so when you go out to a website, for example, and I go and hit Cisco.com, I'm pulling down a lot of JavaScript and images and different things. So those are a lot of transactions that TCP is needing to handle. But we're seeing with the flip to Quick, we do start to see things improve a bit. And in the future, probably even more so once systems begin to optimize even more. I mean, TCP's been around 40 years, right? There's been a lot of tuning and tweaking to make it faster. Once we start seeing that more with Quick, we'll start to see things continue to improve. I'm going to pause. How are we doing on questions, people?
Not a lot of questions in chat. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the 0RTT and what the implications are for that. I mean, obviously I understand the plus side. but obviously setting up those connections has been something that we've needed to do. So what's changed, right? And I understand the established session, so I guess there's just an assumed trust. Are we just reusing connection IDs, or or is it just starting over from scratch? But because of the fact that we vetted each other out recently, what's recently? How long does that time out? I have a lot of questions around that because I haven't heard about this, and I'm trying to think about what is the implications. Obviously, I appreciate the value in speeding up and getting data, as quickly as possible, as little overhead as possible. I think it's going to be significant. The longer, right? Obviously, the longer your round trip time is, the more impactful that's going to be. It's pretty cool.
Sure, those are some good questions, Jordan. And for me, it's not something I've been able to study yet because I haven't seen it yet because it just came out.
So okay, so there you go. So I'm asking questions that are that aren't well known, I guess, at this point. Somebody knows them if it's been standardized. I just anytime I hear about something like that, it just makes me start to wonder. We did this for a reason. So what about our environment? Or what about the networking space has changed to now mean that we don't? Or are we introducing new concerns, things that we now need to think about, either from a security perspective, a spoofing perspective, right? Like what are we introducing here? And that's really interesting. I don't know. It's something I have to do a little bit of research on.
Sure. Yeah, and quick, it also could be one of those features that we just don't see around in the wild for a little while either,
right.
But the feature is built in there. I mean, I think I'm excited to see, and I'm hoping that it happens here soon. It's hard to say exactly when, but for me, tinkering and learning and doing everything that I've been able to do with Quick up until now, everything that I have in practice to play with is Draft 29, right? And there are subtle differences. I've read the new standard, but there are some subtle differences between Draft 29 and the final standard, but most of the core stuff that you see is the same.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Quick has been around for a while. Like, I mean, it's not. We're not talking about something that's new, and obviously through the standards process, it gets refined, or at least that's the hope, right? Is that it's getting refined through that process. I'm hesitant to use that word by anything that's approved via committee. But at the same time, like the idea is, you get it more exposed, but Google has been using this for years. When you say that when you go to YouTube, that's not a new thing. If you've been using Chrome and going to any Google resource, you've been using Quick for several years now. Right? Yeah. Because they've been doing it for a while. So this isn't, none of this is new, and it's not likely to break anything because guess what? We already are dealing with it, right? Like you said, because of the fact that they packed this into UDP, everything that's a middle box is pretty much just unaware. It just doesn't know the difference, right? It's not looking at that deep into the packet.
No. Yeah. No. And it doesn't care.
It's very cool.
What we used to do. What we used to do at one of our boundaries was deny UDP 443 because there's no native application that we use or that we know of that uses that. So we used to block that at the boundary, which forces Chrome, Chromium, and all the derivatives to fall back to TCP 443 because when you look at a PCAP 2-3 years ago, there wasn't much to see in Wireshark when it came to Quick, but there was much more that you can glean from a TLS session. The TLS headers. So we would force that fallback by blocking it at the firewall, and it worked great. And no one in the office knew the difference. In fact, they only know now if they're listening. But yeah, your browser will send out actually both. It will start to send out UDP 443, and if the server side responds with that, it will continue over that using Quick. And if not, it will stand up the regular TCP session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's one way a browser could do it. Another I've seen is it can start over a TCP connection, and the server itself can suggest an alternate service. Like the server can kind of be like, hey, man, want to try this over Quick? Because I can do Quick if you can, it's kind of at that state. So both ways, like the browser could try both, or the server could suggest, which now that V1 is out and boy, we're starting to see a lot flip over. So Cloudflare, I go to an interesting site to go to is, I got to look it up. I think it's http3check.com, I believe. I'll pull it up here in a second, but you can go and see whether a site is HTTP3 and quick yet, if it can support it yet. Like Wireshark.org. If you go download Wireshark, you're downloading it over quick. You know? So here, let me actually not lie to you guys.
HTTP3check.net.com doesn't resolve.
Yeah, here, let me pull this in, guys. It's .net. Sorry, I lied to you.
It's all good.
Here, let's see here. Yeah, if I go to http3check.net, clearly this is not over quick.
I just checked. Network Collective does not offer quick version. It does not provide an alternate service.
Mine's kind of weirding out on me. But it's not. Okay. Yeah. Try wireshark.org.
Yeah. Quick is supported. HTTP3 is supported.
Nice. Yeah. So here.
So is this just in I imagine the web server, right? In handling the request, testing around, and offer the alternative.
Absolutely. So once it's http3check.net. This is one of the tools that for me I've just been tinkering with, and if you can pop in your company's site, and if it is quick HTTP3 capable, then you'll see it populate here, and you can actually see how long it takes to respond. I'm definitely having an issue to that site right now, but anyway, that's one way just to see it as far as if a system can support it. So what we should see now with V1 is a browser instead of having this be an experimental thing, or just with like Firefox development, or even Safari's been a bit of a late adopter to this. We should start to see Quick be more of a front runner. If not, with the next version of Chrome, I'm sure Quick will be the first one that it tries, especially to Google services. If you go to Facebook, that's over Quick. If you call a car over Uber, you're doing it over Quick. So Uber flipped to Quick last year. I think it was around September, October, sometime last year.
Anything that's control of both ends of the connection should have been able to use Quick already, because it was out, it was available. Yeah. It wasn't standardized, but they could have adopted. Really, it comes down to when you don't have control of both ends. So as someone who runs a website, you can offer it, right? And Chrome obviously was in. I don't know, was Firefox earlier in? Did they already have a version of Quick before it was standardized, or were they waiting for the standard?
Not in the main browser. It's been a beta thing. Like on Nightly, you could turn it on. Okay. You could turn it on with Firefox Nightly. I think I haven't tested the latest version yet, but I didn't see it in the standard version. It was like a beta you could turn on.
Right. My understanding is that really, because the reason why Google could do it is because they have such a large browser presence and such a large, so many web properties, they could take advantage of it because they owned both ends of the connection. So something like Uber or anything that was app-based on your phone, like they could do it as well because they're deploying the app and they're deploying the service the app is connecting to. Like that makes sense. What the standard does, right, is it makes it accessible and supportable for a lot more entities to do so. You're not going to see variations now, or you might still see variations, but then they won't be standards based. It's a lot safer for someone like Firefox to implement because they don't have to go chasing their tail. Right. If Google decides to change it tomorrow, which they had no control or visibility over, and all of a sudden their browser breaks, and so they were worried about a user experience problem, and so now that it's standardized, we're going to see it a lot broader because now both clients and servers will implement it, knowing that at least there's a stable, we can implement it with this standard, and it should work together, and that's great.
Yeah. Now let me tell you guys before I have to wrap up here. Here's some of the bummer part of Quick. All right. I'm just going to do full disclosure, especially as an analyst. This guy's complex, man. Woo! We got some learning to do.
So what do you mean by that? Because TCP is complex too. I would say TCP is complex in a way that it's a bit obscure, only because the fact that we don't have to touch it very often. So I know that, Chris, you live your life talking about the deep down internals of TCP, but even most networkers don't, right? And you can be a decent networker and not really interface deeply. I mean, you have to understand some of it, but to understand the nuance, right? You don't have to, because a lot of that's handled at the kernel level. A lot of that's handled in whatever the networking stack is. And generally settings are okay. Unless you're really getting into optimization, you don't touch those things. So is Quick complicated in a way? It's not, I assume it's not complicated in a way to consume. It's really complicated when you start getting into something like this, where you're digging into the packets and looking at all the individual bits, all the different components and what it's doing under the hood. Or are there implications to that complexity to networkers, that like things they need to know to be able to run it well?
That's a good question. And I think we could debate on what complex means, right? Or what level of complexity do I need to go to do my job? And I think you're right. You're spot on. Like with a lot of, coming from the networking background myself, a lot of networkers are going to have to worry about, okay, up to, all right, port 443, am I passing this or not? You're just probably not going to have to get too much in the weeds of the quick component, right? What's actually above the UDP spot. But as an analyst that will have to get into this, that's where it's basically, I mean, this is the way that I've been able to conceptualize what Quick is doing here. So you see these stream IDs right here? I have a column called stream IDs. And this is not a new concept. This actually came around with HTTP 2. HTTP 2 does this over TCP as well. But basically what happens is we have one quick connection, but within that those quick connections, I have several streams. So let me show this to you. Let me build this out in a good way.
You can multiplex requests in different components over a single connection. So you're not reestablishing a connection every single time you have a new request. That's the idea behind this.
Connection, exactly. Yeah. In a quick connection right here, that you're exactly right, Jordan. I got 3 streams and this HTTP3, which at this moment, Wireshark isn't going too far in the dissection at this moment, right? I mean, this will begin to be populated as we go forward. But this HTTP3 goes in this stream, this HTTP3 goes in this stream, and the last HTTP3 goes in this stream. Okay, great. But basically, the way Quick handles this is each stream is almost like its own TCP connection, complete with flow control. Quick itself handles packet loss recovery. But those ideas, those things that we've learned from TCP that we've had to get into our heads as far as even window size and maximum segment size, things like that, we do borrow those concepts and bring them into Quick. So Quick is almost like a bunch of TCP streams sitting on top of it, or within it, I should say, is a better way to say it. But here's another catch here with Quick. In this Wireshark profile, I have the SSL keylog to be able to decrypt this Quick stream. So a lot of this, as you see, I see Quick packet numbers. I see acknowledgement numbers. We're no longer acknowledging sequence numbers, which is so nice. Now I acknowledge full Quick packets. That's kind of a whole other concept. Stream IDs, I can see stream IDs. I can see the packet type. And I can see actually payloads within packets, right? So I have this decrypted, right? I can actually see plain text stuff. But let me flip to a different profile, because as soon as I go, I'm just going to pick one, Pluralsight. So now I'm on a new profile, same trace. The only thing that changed is I just removed, each keylog is tied to each profile. So I am not decrypting this Quick stream. But check this out. I only see packet number up to packet 3, and then after that, it's in the protected encrypted payload. After my handshake, after my first 2 packets of initial, all I'm going to see as a packet analyst is I see my Quick connection information, my short header, destination connection ID, and then payload. That's it. So what this does, it gives me very little to go off of unless I can decrypt it. This is actually part of the purpose of Quick, right? With TCP, we have sequence numbers. There's a ton of things that we can do and even adjust with TCP, right? I'm sure we've done that on routers. We've had to say, adjust MSS. And, whenever you see a SYN, if it comes in 1460, change it down to 1432. And that way you have more space for other headers and stuff. With Quick, it's actually designed to say, hey, network, leave me the heck alone. And that's one reason why we're not going to see packet lengths that go to the maximum, right? Quick doesn't want to hit its head on a 1500 immediately, right out the gate especially. So anyway, I say all that to say now with encryption, we see a whole lot less than we even did with TCP. We could troubleshoot quite a bit, even in an encrypted stream using the TCP stuff and figure out packet loss and recovery and at least bytes in flight. And we could measure sequence numbers and that kind of stuff. We had a lot of access to that, but we just don't anymore with Quick. It's just a blind UDP stream and we don't have much else. So decryption is going to be a big deal if we need to get in actually troubleshoot quick delivered applications.
Right. And this is TLS 1.3, which is presenting new challenges to decryption to begin with. So I was just thinking about the enterprise space, a lot of other places, a lot of places have middle boxes that sit in the middle and do decryption and inspection on the fly. And I know that with TLS 1.3, there's some components that are introduced that make that a lot harder. Certificate chain validation to make sure that there's not a certificate in the middle that's not intended to be there between client and server, right? And so I'm curious too, does this have broader implications for those middle boxes as well? The underlying isn't encrypted, right? You still have had it but to get any of the data, and it's going to be every single stream. It's not an optional encryption at this point. It is something that is built into the protocol. And so we talk about, decryption. I mean, I talk about this all the time because I talk about SASE a lot and these security solutions that sit in the cloud. One of the big advantages of them is the fact that, the vendor who provides it can provide a lot of horsepower into that SSL, decryption process. And they're all dealing with how they're going to deal with TLS 1.3. As we see more and more of the web go encrypted voluntarily, the more people that adopt Quick, and I think it's going to be a lot, it's not even about having a certificate on the web server then. The actual underlying is encrypted on top of it as well. And so I just see continued nightmares for people who manage man-in-the-middle boxes with encryption. So when you say you have the certificate to decrypt this, where do you get that? Is that something that is...
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm glad you asked, Jordan. Because I have a YouTube video on decrypting Quick.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. But here on decrypting Quick here is in the context of Wireshark. After the fact, you're looking at the packets. This is not on the fly, right? There's not a solution for that. It's if you're going to capture it, you're also going to have to take into consideration the certificate that was used to encrypt it and how do you obtain that. So you should go watch that video. I should go watch that video because I don't know the answer to the question. So
basically what it comes down to is you just need the temporary session keys, the same as we did for TLS 1.3 over TCP.
Sure.
So we can collect those one of three ways. And I'm going to show you in that video, I show you how to do it in Kali Linux on the client side. If you have a Windows box, then there's a video I have on decrypting HTTPS, and it's the same thing, but I do it on a Windows box. Some vendors, what they're doing as far as the monitoring people, they're putting agents on the server side to be able to collect those temporary session keys, or like you just mentioned, doing some type of man-in-the-middle thing. The good thing about Quick is that since it's using, TLS 1.3, is those session keys, they've been basically working out how to collect them for a while. Quick doesn't do anything that TCP didn't as far as TLS 1.3. TLS 1.3 over Quick is the same as it was on TCP. So that's what's cool,
I would rephrase that a little bit differently.
Capture those. We have to tell our browser to capture them, but we can still collect them the same as we could.
Right. So none of this was built into TCP. So really what you're saying is it does what TCP does, and it also incorporates what TLS did natively into the fundamental protocol. It brings both in. So it's not reinventing the wheel. What it's doing is it's marrying them, making them part of the same protocol to get it done. But they're not reinventing TLS 1.3. And they brought a lot of TCP along the path, because obviously a lot of it works. There's not a reason to reinvent the wheel. It's a brilliant protocol on its own. It's just how do we enhance it? Yeah. That's excellent.
You know? Yeah, I'm excited to see it continue to evolve and develop. And on the chat, I did see a question. Is Quick over, let me see if I can get a packet to come up. What does Quick look like over IPv6?
Yep.
And let me see if I can pull it up. It's the same. I mean, that's the short answer. But here you go.
So it behaves identically. There's not a difference between V4 and V6, which makes sense because it sits above the IP layer, right? So it shouldn't be impacted by what the transport or the IP, not the transport. I gotta be careful with my wording, what the IP layer information is. But you never know. Sometimes these things, there's unintended, interaction surfaces between things. So it's good to know that IPv6 is there as well.
Yeah. It's that was a great question. I mean,
I wonder what this is going to do to, you guys mentioned middle boxes. When I think middle boxes, my brain goes to like firewalls. But I wonder what this is going to do to the world of proxies.
Ooh, that's a good question. Load balancers.
Yeah, load balancers, right? That are sitting in front of a bunch of servers, bunch of web servers. But yeah, proxies. I'm thinking there's a ton of value of having a proxy in the network still to this day. When done properly, there's a ton of value in visibility that comes out of it. And this kind of just strips that away.
Well, that's part of what some of the design principles behind Quick were. It's the network has gotten so used to TCP. The network has gotten so used to the way TCP works that it's hard to even migrate TCP. Mm-hmm. Like take WAN accelerators and what they do and what they expect. This is a 40-year-old protocol, right? So there's a certain way things work. So anything that doesn't quite work the way that other TCP packet did, that's why even new options have been hard to implement with TCP, because firewalls can go, what the heck's this? I don't like this new option. Drop.
Right.
It's like, we're just trying to grow here, pal. Hey, network, chill out, So
there's a question here about MTU that's in the chat about a minimum MTU of 1350. Is that true?
No. Let me see here. Let me try to show you.
It says it looks like Quick has issues with IPv6 networks that are set for 1280 MTU because Quick needs 1350 bytes of transport.
Yeah, so the upper range, I got to look up the absolute number. It's in the 12s. That's the minimum. And how do I say this? The minimum maximum, right? So Quick doesn't want to be lower than 1200, or it's like the 1250 or so. But in the handshake, we're actually spelling out that our payload size could be up to 1472 if. That's an if, that's still a possible max payload size. That said, IPv6 is grabbing some of that and so on. That's actually part of the reason why we start off so large. You see, with TCP handshakes, SYN-SYNAC, you're all at 64 bytes, 74 bytes. You have this teeny little SYN-SYNAC act, this handshake with TCP. And then what would happen, this happened in a lot of cases, is you then would try to send some kind of application request over it where you're actually using the connection, and that gets hung up somewhere because of an MTU problem or an MSS problem. We're now out the gate from from the initial packet, we're actually not only just sending that client hello, and this is from just what I just captured. If I come down to the bottom, you have this padding that will always pad it to some number minimum. That this is going to depend on version and implementation, but I've seen it in the high 13s, 1392, 1399, in that range for it. And even out the gate, here's my first packet. So,
and that doesn't scale down?
Kind of stress that low MTU path.
Because Kevin brings up a good point. I mean, he brings up LTE, 5G, but anything where there's encapsulation that sits over the top. I'm even thinking, we keep building, overlays over overlays over overlays, right? And we keep affecting MTU. That seems like if there's not a lower minimum than, 1300 or whatever it was, 12 or 1350 or 1280 or whatever the number actually is. I think 5G LTE is probably the best use case where that is consistently there, where you see MTUs that are a bit smaller because of the fact of the encapsulation that's involved. But I wonder what the implication is there. There might be something to investigate if there really is not a smaller minimum, especially because of the fact that it's padding, right? It's an artificial max. I understand what it's doing. It's trying to set it up and avoid MTU issues early on. I wonder if that scales down the padding until it actually goes there, or if there actually is a true minimum that's that high. Because, I've seen lots of networks that don't run at that MTU. It's not often, and it's usually because of bad design, where the mobile networks are a good example of not necessarily bad design, just the nature of the way they connect.
Yeah, I gotcha. I just pulled up the RFC.
When in doubt,
it says here, let me just throw this on my screen.
Oh, you're going to put it on the screen? All right.
I know. We keep going.
Hey, you're the one with the hard stop.
Yeah, I know, right? See what happens when I start having fun with you guys. That's the problem. All right. If a quick endpoint determines that the path MTU between any pair of local and remote IP addresses cannot support the smallest allowed maximum datagram size of 1,200 bytes, it must immediately cease sending quick packets, except for those in the PMTU probes or those containing connection close frames.
So the number is 1,200.
It wants at least a ceiling of 1,200 or more. It doesn't want to have a lower ceiling than 1,200.
That's great. And good call out, Kevin. That's an interesting change, because obviously TCP would work on much lower MTUs than that. Not that it's advisable, but it would function.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, the rest we get to see as it matures, and I'm excited. Who knows if you guys do another session one day on the, I don't know, what happens during a low MTU? How does quick behave, or how can we tell that or troubleshoot it? That'd be kind of interesting.
Kevin asks, is 1,200 for IPv4 only?
I'd have to dig through the RFC, to be honest. That's the only place I see that.
It sounds like a great conversation for our next conversation, or at least a follow-up. Preston says his TCP MTU is 5. I think if you get it down to 5, you're going to have some problems there, Preston.
Right.
That's funny.
Well, good.
All right, man. Well, Chris,
it's been great to be here with you guys.
Yeah, we'll let you go, because I think we're about 12 minutes past what you said was a hard stop, which is hilarious. Before you run, though, please, where do people find you and the stuff that you're doing? Please plug what you have going on.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So my YouTube channel, please stay. I'm trying to post content to that as regularly as I can. Packet Pioneer is my Twitter handle. Chris@packetpioneer.com. That's my email address. Reach out, send me an email if you'd like to. That'd be awesome. Packetpioneer.com is my website. But a big one for me that I'd like to encourage everybody, and maybe Tony, you could tell some stories of what you liked about last class, because I'd assume you liked it because you're going again. But with SharkFest, the conference class, that would be great to see you guys out there. I think it's a really unique opportunity to come and specifically we're making sense of Wireshark, right? So when we see these screens and rip through them and shred through protocols, what should jump out to us what does really slow things down or break them, and how can you get better at using Wireshark with your day-to-day, whatever that is, right? So it's a 2-day class. It's going to be September 12th and 13th. Registration is open for it now, and you save $50 if you register now. I think the price goes up at the end. It's actually mid-July sometime. So early bird pricing. Right. It's a good time to get out there.
Nice.
And check it out. But.
And Preston also points out that you are in the Network Collective Slack. So another place to connect with you. So, well, Chris, man, it's always a joy to have you on. I really appreciate you bringing what you have to bring, because it's always valuable. So, go tell whoever that you just made late that we apologize, and
don't worry about it. My actual hard stop's 7.
Seven year Pacific, right? So 10 o'clock. So you said that just to make sure that we would be done. That's a smart man.
No worries.
All right, man. Chris, thanks again, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Do you see what he did? He adjusted the MSS of his Network Collective contribution, live stream contribution.
Yeah.
He adjusted us down to 9:30, but then
just to
went
make
long.
sure. Yeah, because he could scale up. Yeah. Or is that more like windowing than MSS adjust?
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's pretty funny. Yeah. Wow. I was just sitting here like like watching the maestro. I mean, he's just shredding through quick, and I can't wait to dive in. I certainly have not done a quick deep dive. It's one of the things I look forward to really learning at SharkFest. I think it's really awesome for me. I hope it's really awesome for me, the fact that I'm coming into this as a professional, right? This is my profession. And here I am with a new protocol that has come out sort of in my lifetime. As Chris mentioned, TCP's been around for 40 years. It's actually older than me. And then here's Quick, right? That is just now being, I was going to say certified, not certified.
Standardized?
What do they call it from the working group? Standardized. Thank you.
Yes.
Standardized, in my lifetime, but not just in my lifetime, while I'm in my profession. So I look forward to working with Quick over, till it's my time to retire. And then maybe one day I'll be the old graybeard, and the young whippersnappers will be talking about, what are they going to rename Quick? They're going to call it like super fast? I think we talked about this, but they're going to call it Plaid, right?
Yeah, call it Plaid. That's the next one. Yes.
Ludicrous speed.
That's ludicrous
protocol.
Oh man. All right, man. Well, that went a little longer than I thought it was, and that was all fantastic. No complaints. But there's no more conversation to be had. I think it's time to do your thing, Tony. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Network Collective's Naked Hardware. This is the part of the show where I get to show you a piece of networking gear without its chassis, without its case, exposing those raw bits and bytes inside. You have to try and identify and guess what it is as close as possible with make and model as you possibly can. So we haven't been on the air for a couple of weeks, so the first images I'm going to show you was the last Naked Hardware that we did, which was, I believe, June 2nd, we posted this. And so it's been out there now for 3 weeks. So this is very cool. I think I'm sharing my screen. Jordan, you want to put it up there?
Yep, we're good.
So this was 3 weeks ago.
I remember this one.
Naked Hardware, right? So this definitely looks like one of those big, heavy steel chassis.
Yeah, it looks old. Also, the spacing on the board makes it look old. Yeah.
I'm very familiar with this chassis. When I was putting together my CCNA lab rack, this is what I started with. A bunch of these guys I bought off of a guy in an Applebee's parking lot from Craigslist. That could have gone bad.
That's hilarious. Buying routers out of the back of the truck.
I went on Craigslist and I was like, CCNA lab kit, found a guy, 15 minutes away. And we met in a well-lit, parking lot. And And I paid him $100, and I got a whole bunch of gear, switches and routers and cables and all kinds of stuff. And I was so cool. And it went very, very underutilized. So
For CCNA,
yeah, for CCNA. But I don't want to get it. That's a whole separate talk. I've given my opinion on that. Go virtual labbing. There are so many tools available out there. You don't need the physical gear. Some people want it for that tactile feedback, but it's not necessary. Anyhow, I bought a bunch of these, what we have on screen, and I'm now going to share with you what people thought they were. So a couple of guesses, starting off here from June 2nd. It always takes a moment for my computer to load this. And something wonky is going on here. That's fine. So from Tom Costello, his guess is it's definitely a Cisco ISR, right? Probably a 2600 series, maybe a 2611XM. I guess it could be a 2811.
I don't know.
I think that had more fans.
I don't think you had to guess 3 times in one guess.
I'm also trying to read this with like the proper inflection that I hope he intended. So what we have, George, you wouldn't believe it. I have because I have the 2 spotlights here in my workshop, and my workshop, is a workshop. It's not an interior part of my house. I have these flies come in here because I keep my door open all day.
Oh, nice.
And they're buzzing around my head. It's driving me crazy. I'm trying to do naked hardware. Leave me alone. Tom Costello, definitely a Cisco ISR, probably a 2600 series, maybe a 2611. That was the first person who guessed it. That was that night, right shortly after posting it. The next guest came in.
That's the same
morning.
Tom that wrote the Nexus article about two-stage confirm. Yeah, and he's written some other good stuff too. You should go follow his blog if you aren't, because it's very good.
In fact, I think I'm going to maybe drop a link because there's a couple of articles that I was reading of his as well.
Yeah.
Either a 2610 or a 2611 router with a WIC 1T card attached. It's been a long, long time. That's a really good guess.
What was in the module?
Yeah. And then the last one, I named them by the date and timestamp, and I put this one cosigned because it looks like Mikhail. It's definitely not an XM for sure. 2621 is an option too. Hard to tell from so long ago. So he was jumping on that bandwagon. All right. So what we got here is it's definitely not an XM. Everyone's seeing it now for the first time who wasn't following along. I wonder if there's any guesses. Let's see. Kevin Myers. I still have a 2600 in my garage. Are they cicadas? They are not cicadas. Thank you for jumping in, Sean. And what we have here for our answers are, drum roll, please.
Oh, I wasn't ready for that. You can't.
I got it.
There it is. You got it.
It's coming. There you go.
Click it when you start at 2611.
That is a 2611, not the XM model. Wait, what was that sound?
What sound?
There's a sound coming through. I'm not crazy, right? Y'all hear that? It was definitely like a low buffeting sound. Anyhow, Cisco 2611. Yep. And this is one of those DB60 connectors right here, the serial connectors. I still have my DB60 cable over there. Believe it or not, that's the one that came from the CCNA kit that I bought all that time ago. And I saved it because when I went to the community college, they had a bunch of these old cards. And I said, I got my own cable. So yeah. That is a DB60 right there.
Yeah. So did anybody
I've never seen these in production.
I have.
Only in lab.
I feel like I'm a little bit older than you, Tony, because
you are.
I have seen those in production.
Also, I've never seen just straight up Ethernet in production.
Are you kidding me?
The 10 megabit? 10 megabit? No, I've seen 100 megs, not 10 megabits. No.
Okay. I need to go take a nap and yell at someone to get off my yard.
I was just thinking, what a hilarious meme we need to do of like an old man, standing in his doorway with his walker and on his shirt is TLS, and there's a bunch of kids with shirts that say "Quick" on it. And he's like, "Get off my lawn!"
Kevin is making me feel better. He says that was a hot router once, and then he's questioning how old you are. Why are we listening to you? You've never seen?
I've never seen 10 megabit Ethernet. It's true.
Oh,
No,
man.
I've done plenty with serial links, but no, not 10 megabit Ethernet. And frame relay, I've done a little frame relay, but I've told that story before. Anyhow, who are our winners? Tom Costello is our winner. He guessed the 2611.
Nice.
Go back to that.
Was that guess number 1,
So he
2, or 3?
Well, because we never really put a definition on it.
No,
and
it's fine. Just
the
give it a
post
hard
says
time.
as close as possible. So 2611, 2600. He's definitely in the 2600 series.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and give that to Tom Costello. All right, very cool.
Yeah. So
We'll be reaching out
Tony,
to
have you ever
via
seen
the Network Collective Twitter. Go ahead.
coax used on a switch for connectivity? No, you haven't.
No. No.
Feeling
Coax?
really, really old. Yes, coax.
No, you got to think though. When I'm a late bloomer. I'm a career changer, right? I was on a different career path.
You know what,
and,
Tony? You just made me feel a lot better because you had a whole other career before you started this thing.
It's
Yeah,
true.
you
And
did.
when I was coming through CCNA, they told me that I had to learn frame relay because it was on the test,
Right.
and that it was on its way out. Right? You just have to learn it because it's on the test. No one really uses it anymore. It's old technology. And once I got into my first real network, working with a service provider, standing up new links,
Right.
frame relay.
Right. I've used
those were
frame
all
relay in
those
production,
were-
yes.
Yeah, it was all DS3, DS3s, DS3, OC3s, OC12, and it was all frame relay. So that about dates the oldest stuff that I've touched. 10 megabit Ethernet, forget about it.
Oh, man.
But the guys who I used to work with on that team, they used to talk about. He was like, "Man, I was doing networking when you were in diapers, and all this stuff." But he would talk about these vampire taps
Oh, yeah.
on like a bus network, and you just have to tap it with the vampire teeth or whatever. And I was like, I've seen that in like a history book, but I've never actually done it.
I never had to do that either. I wasn't around for that, but that was only slightly before my time. I just managed to
But you know
not
what it
work
is?
in
It's
that.
also-
Those networks were
It's also
like
I
active.
know that guy. I know that guy. He was in the military prior to what he was doing for us as sort of project management, and I know that the military has a lot of antiquated technology. The lifespan for equipment in the military when it comes to like networking gear and stuff like that has a much longer lifespan than it does in like your commercial enterprise, where you're not on a 5-year refresh cycle. You're on a 15, 20-year refresh cycle for some things. So I'm sure when he was talking about those vampire taps, they were probably from the service from when he was in.
Sure. Well, Tony, I think you have to do your reveal because I think we're on a timeline for this one. So let's
It's
talk
going to be
about.
posted automatically. Here we go.
Okay.
This one.
Am I bringing up your screen? Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, this is
I'm
fun.
ready.
We're switching mediums here.
Boom. Shaka. This one's very cool. This one comes from my very own collection. So Preston, if you're out there, you can guess on this one. Preston has supplied us with a ton of naked hardware
Yes,
pictures.
thank you, Preston.
So he very often can't guess on them because they are his own donations. This one came from one of my stash, from my work. Don't tell anybody. And there we go. An old
You didn't
decommissioned.
steal it. You took a picture of it.
It was a decommissioned piece, and I said, you know what? I'm going to take a picture of this. So I cracked it open and got
Fascinating.
it. So this is going to be automatically put out on the Network Collective Twitter feed. I have it
In like 2
scheduled to
minutes.
post at 10 p.m. That's right. So if you have a guess what you think it is, go ahead and put those guesses in when you see that post. I look forward to seeing what everyone thinks it is.
Right, and it's at Network Collective PC or at Net Collective PC and the Naked Hardware hashtag.
Yep, hashtag naked hardware. In fact, if you just search up hashtag naked hardware and you hit the latest button, we pretty much dominate that hashtag. So you'll see our tweets coming up at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. Eastern. 10 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, there you go. Good to clarify. All right.
Yep.
Well, it was fun. Every time Chris is on, I just walk away. It's like, I feel smarter. So he's a really good guest. I've been hearing about Quick for a long time. I've not done much research into it. I understood some of the stuff, but he really kind of highlighted some stuff that I didn't know. So I'm excited to do a little bit of research and get more solid on it. It's good to be back.
Absolutely. And, like I said, I'm because I play in the security space, that's my bread and butter. I really got to figure out how the middle boxes are going to start dealing with this new protocol. And I don't mean just your firewalls, with tuple matching, your web proxies, things that are looking at the application layer.
Yeah, anything next gen, right? Anything that goes beyond.
Yeah, we're going to see.
L3, L4, even stuff that goes, well, no, because L4 should be fine. It's just, it's anything next gen, right? Anything that actually tries to dive into, there's some risk there, or there's something that's going on. Although that being said, it's been running, right? So there's not a ton of risk. The real risk is just like IPv6 and other things when they come out. It isn't that your stuff is going to break because it's going through it. Is that it's going to be going through it and you're not looking for it. You don't know, right? That's the big risk. And
that's it. That's exactly why I gave the example at one of the networks at my office. We block UDP 443 outbound, and that stops Quick from establishing a connection, and your browser will fall back, or Chrome browser will fall back to TCP, right? Because we're watching the wire, and when it goes over Quick, we lose that visibility, and So this is going to evolve. My understanding for it's going to evolve, and the tools are going to evolve as well. So I'm very excited for doing a deep dive with Quick at SharkFest with Chris Greer and everybody else.
Good deal. Well, Tony, it's been fun. I think it's time for us to sign off. For all who have stuck out with us and are still watching, thank you. It's good to have you here. Thanks for the chat. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll do this again next week. All things permitting. I don't see any reason why we won't. So. We'll do it again. We'll do it again, and we'll go from there. All right, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night, everyone.
It's very awesome.
Or morning if you're listening overseas or something like that.
Tyler, he just joined. Sorry, Tyler.
Tyler, when
we're going to finish the stream, hit that rewind button. Hit that rewind button.
When you join 2 hours after we start, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again next week.